Alright, so these are the carburetors from my 2001 Yamaha GP800R, and they're Mikuni carburetors, and I bought that jet ski knowing that it was damaged and blown up. The engine's off getting rebuilt right now, so I'm just going to have to wait a minute on that. But I figured in preparation I would get this carburetor set up, rebuilt, and sealed and make sure everything's working right for when the engine comes in. The first thing I did here was I just undid this bolt here, and then there's another two, and that actually releases it from the basically the reed valve retaining plate. And so anyway, I did that, and then I unhooked the two fuel lines. You can see those are kind of pissing yet. And then here, these two are the pulse signal lines. And so anyway, so I'm gonna take these lines off of here, and then this must be like, kind of looks like an accelerator pump, because like when you hit it, it must give it a pretty good little squirt there, because if you roll this around, this hits on here, and it just must pump, it must be fuel in right there. So anyway, I'm gonna undo these hoses and get them out of the way so we can see a little better what we're dealing with here. Alright, so that's about all the further I can take it, because you got to get access to the side of the carburetors. So I'm going to start trying to get the one carburetor separated from the other, and that involves taking off this back plate right here where it like adapts to the intake manifold, and then most of this linkage on this side. Alright, so both of the carbs have now been separated. There's kind of like, I'm going to call it like a master and a slave. This is the forward mounted one. This is the rearward mounted one. This one looks real basic. There isn't really anything else special about it. Whereas this carb has the accelerator pump, the throttle linkage on it. And so basically I'm going to work on this one and just figure you got to do everything twice. Now that I got this undone, the first thing I'm going to do is figure out kind of where all the adjustments are, because I don't want to, I kind of want to know where they were first of all, and you never do know how screwed up it could get. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to count the amount of turns it takes to bottom. This is the must be like the idle screw right there. Here's your, this is your low probably. Yes, low speed. And here's your high right here, hidden down back in here. So I'm basically going to count how many rotations it takes to seat them, and just note that. So first of all, the idle, that one probably won't work because that's pressing down on it, but I'm still going to try and figure out here. Half, 1, 1.5. So probably like about 1 turn in it was. Yeah. 1/2, 1. It's about 1 turn in on the idle screw. This is the low screw here, I believe. I'm gonna turn it. I'm gonna go in. So half, 1, 1.5, probably like 1 3/4, I would say. And now for the high, half, basically half and maybe a strong half, something like that. So I have that all documented now. The screws on here are not Phillips screws. That's what that little dot right there means. So that's a Japanese international standard or industrial standard or something like that, aka JIS. And so I just bought some bits off of Amazon, real cheapo deals, but I just needed them so I could put them in a different screwdriver. I don't plan on using these all that much, so that's a number 2. It says JIS 2 right there, so I'll be using that to try and get these out. I have an impact screwdriver, but it doesn't fit for these quarters, it's for bigger stuff. So I flipped it over here. First thing I'm going to do is try and get this regulator cover off of here. And so I got must be the feed hose for the accelerator pump. I'm going to clip that, get that undone and off of there, and then I'm going to open this up. Alright, so now that the cover is off here, I'm going to try and get the needle and seat out of there. So that was the needle, now I'm going to get the seat out. Okay, now I'm going to take this plate off. Looks like somebody's been in there. They're already a little stripped out. Alright, so I got everything taken out of here. I got the seat, the needle, the spring, the pivot arm. There's a little cover that goes over. Both of the jets are out. And so I placed all of my little pieces in this little bucket so I don't lose anything, because there's a bunch of little stuff. So with that all torn down, now I'm going to flip over here, and now I'm just going to remove, this must be the high speed adjustment here. So on here is, you know, the actual needle, but then there's a spring, a washer, and an O-ring. Now we've rotated over, now we're to the pump block section. So then these are check valves. One goes one way, one goes the other way. And then on the back there is another, looks like another plastic piece maybe, and then a rubber. Yep, plastic. And then rubber, and then that middle plate. And here's the fuel filter right here. There's a little bit in there. I don't know if that's gonna pick up, but there's like basically like some lint in that. I'm just gonna quick take the, this is the idle adjustment screw. I just took that off of there too. And I'm gonna back out the low speed screw. Alright, so I'm pretty sure that's about as far as I'm going to disassemble it. I've taken all the, you know, pieces out of there. The only thing you could really yet do is like actually disassemble it and then like take these butterflies out, but I don't think really that's necessary for my cleaning job here. So I'm going to start rinsing it out with some carb and choke cleaner and make sure everything's really clean. The problem here is that the paint on the outside of this is flaking, and this is a freshwater boat or jet ski. And it's like, it's just kind of nasty on the outside, so we're really gonna have to clean this up, make sure none of that makes its way inside, or we'll just have an even dirtier carb than what we started with. Alright, so off camera, I cleaned this thing up, and mistake made here, I should have started with compressed air, because when you blow this all off, it blows a bunch of these flakes of paint and just chips of garbage that's all on this carb off. So should have started that way, but I finally got it cleaned up, took a few runs of carb cleaner and then blow off and carb cleaner and back and forth. So this paint looks pretty crappy right here. I'm probably not going to do anything about that because this is the top side. That's kind of how you can tell, because water must sit here and kind of pool here, and the bottom looks great obviously. So I don't know, I don't care that much about it that I'm going to make it cosmetically look perfect, but I would really like to blast this down and repaint the whole thing, but if you do that, you got to take all these barbs out and it just kind of becomes a different deal. So this will have to do for now. I just used compressed air and got all the loose off of it, so now it's clean. It's just kind of ugly. So anyway, that's where we're at now. Also, there's this cover plate that I tried. Let's see if I can get this off of here. Yeah, this comes off here. I don't know what I'm actually looking at there. I wonder if that's like something that needs to be cleaned. Oh yeah, actually it is. I can see it right there. So take this off, and then if you look really close, I couldn't even see it, but there is, let me get a pic. There's a tiny little plastic lens right there. So very small, but it was there. So that's some sort of a check valve as well. So we'll have to get that replaced. Here is my rebuild kit. There's the part number. If you're going to use this kit, do me a favor and grab it off of my Amazon link. That would be helpful to me. But anyway, this is a genuine Mikuni kit, and so you can see how small some of these pieces are, so you really want to be careful when you're opening this not to lose anything. So I'm going to open it up and see what we have. Alright, so I've opened up my Mikuni kit here, and I'm just going to start putting some of these pieces back together. First thing is this gasket that lays down in here, and a new fuel filter right here. So I'm going to set the main body aside and go onto the pump block, and these are check valves right here. There's one on each side, so it's like directional. And you want to replace this obviously in the right direction, otherwise it won't work. So basically what you can do is take a small screwdriver and push on this other side, and it'll actually push the, you can see right here the little lip right there. It'll push that and the center out. Alright, so I push these two out of there, and now I want to insert the new one. I bought this tool. There it is. I'll have a link in my description. But anyway, it's just like a small, like turned ball on the end of this punch, and so that's how you can insert that these little rubber pieces into this block. So here's the new setup. This is not cupped in any way. If it was, I would make it so it's like cup facing down basically, so that it gets a good seal. But basically what I'm going to do is, if you look on this block, you can see that one side is machined and the other side is cast. So the machine side is the actual seat for the check valve, and you'll want to do that of course on the other side as well. Alright, so those are now in set there. That tool does work pretty nice, although I bet you a Phillips screwdriver about that size would work as well. Now I'll just put the different plastic and rubber layers on. Notice when you're putting this on, there is a passageway between the fuel filter and this little like pilot hole here, so you'll want that shape to match up. Now the block goes on. It only goes on one direction. If you look at the little casting knobs, there's like a deeper recess on this side compared to here, so that's how you know which direction it goes. So it sits like this. Now the O-ring goes in place. Next is the plastic sheet, and there's these little round kicks on the side, so you just gotta match those up. Then a rubber piece, same deal. Alright, so we got the back of this lid cleaned up, got the gasket off of it. Now I'm gonna go put this back on here. Alright, so now we flipped over to the other side of the carb, and I have these jets. Those are some of the first pieces you'll put in, so gotta weasel those down in there. Just make sure that there's nothing inside them. Of course, all these parts we're gonna clear out. Alright, so before I put the cover on, there's this, maybe you can't even hardly see it, but a little plastic check valve. And the holes are offset, so you have to put it on the right way, flipped the right way. And then there's a little screw and a plate that hold it down. So now the gasket can go underneath here. Alright, so here's the seat, and so I'm going to try and get this O-ring out of here and replace it with one in the kit. Okay, so after the seat's down in there, you take this little clip cover piece and get that started down there to hold the seat in. Now we've got the needle here, and there is a small little groove on there, but I don't have a new needle, so I'm going to run this one and just hope for the best. So that sits there, and then the arm slips underneath the top of the needle, and then you take your spring. I'm going to reuse my spring just so I don't change the pop off, and put that all together. Okay, I can see my needle and the arm and the spring, everything's working good. That spring is in the cup of the arm. So now the diaphragm can go on. It goes so that it fits into that ring right there. And then we'll put the cover on. Okay, so then now we just have to put our adjustment screws in. They're threaded differently. One's a fine thread and one's a coarse thread, so that you can't put the one in the wrong hole. In my carburetor, the low speed screw is the one that has the little T-handle on it. And then here is where the high speed screw goes. Okay, so before I put this carburetor all the way back together, I'm gonna check the pop-off pressure, and that's just kind of a tuning parameter basically that can be adjusted, and it changes like kind of your off-idle drivability. But anyway, what I'm doing here is, this is the return, this is the inlet, and I have this inlet connected to this Mikuni Pop-off Tester. That comes with this deal, and then up to this clear hose. It doesn't come with any of this extra fitting to go onto here. And then I also closed off the return too. And what this does is you pump this up, and basically it pressurizes this chamber and presses against the bottom of that needle. So eventually it'll get enough pressure that it'll go psst, and it'll pop off. That's what it's called. It'll pop off, and it'll over, basically this needle is trying to push up, and then that is a fulcrum right here, and then it's trying to push this spring down like that action is what it's trying to do. And once it does have enough pressure, it'll pop this off. And so it's just a number that you can get, and you want to compare it to, you know, what it's really just like. It's kind of like when you get like a dyno number. So it doesn't really matter, just as long as you know where you are, and then if you make a change, where you're going to. So don't get too hung up on the number. So what you want to do is take a little bit of gasoline, in my case, and I'm going to pour that right on top there. And then now I'm going to pump this thing, and the pressure is going to increase until it pops off. My hose is bleeding off here. We're at 70 pounds. That was it. Like, it went up to about 80 and then fell right back. So there you go. So right at about 80 pounds. And so you can see that that's holding, and then watch if I push on this button. Can bleed off that pressure. So that's how you check pop off. If you look at this chart, this is in the Mikuni Carb Rebuild Kit. It talks about your needle valve, that's the first thing you need, and then what spring you use depending on the color. For example, this would be a gold spring. You know, there's a gold one in there. What are in here right now is the shiny silver. Or like a bright, looks like chrome basically. But anyway, the issue is here, they don't have my needle valve on this chart, so maybe I can find a different chart that would have it. But point is, it's pretty high, and I want a pretty high pop off because I'm still going to have the factory flame arresters on the front of these carbs, so there's going to be a fair amount of vacuum on these carbs. So I'm just going to try it. If it works and it tunes well, then great, and if it doesn't, then we'll start dealing with this. You can bend these, you can trim the springs, you could probably add a packer in behind there if you wanted to. There's a lot of ways that you can change what this pressure is here, basically what the spring pressure is on the needle. But anyway, that's how you do it, and this is the little tool you use. Alright, so it's the next day, and I just went to the parts store and got some 1/8 inch hose, fuel line hose, and then I got some 3/16 as well. And anyway, just got this all set up. Just kind of asked them, hey, can I grab a couple feet? No big deal. $11 later, here we are. And so what I did here is, this is the accelerator pump. So when you hit the gas, this roller comes up here and it pushes this lever arm, and that hits this little diaphragm. And basically it takes fuel out of this this diaphragm, pulls it around, and pumps it through with this little squirting action right there. Pumps it through this T and then into the actual barrel of each carburetor. And so anyway, these were kind of like an older line, and you can see these were original because they got paint from the original carburetor paint when they originally painted the engine. So anyway, got rid of those, and I'm just making up new lines for everything. This one here has this little loom on it, and that's to, I assume, protect from heat or something. So I just put that back on. And so both of these will get paired up together and then mounted on this little intake manifold basically, and this little intake plate. And so my engine came with a WSM gasket kit, and in there were these little gaskets, so no problem. So I'll put those on, and then the bolts, these two bolts hold the carb onto this spacer, or intake manifold, whatever we're gonna call it here. And then this whole system with the carbs gets bolted onto the engine. Okay, so these two are return lines, these two are intake lines from the tank, and then these two are pulse lines. So that's like the oscillating of the cylinder creates a pulse, and that works that diaphragm and those check valves in there to pump fuel. And so these are ready to go. I got my linkages back on here. I got my idle, like basically the throttle rest, that's put in as well. So everything should be good, and we'll put these things on once the engine's in.